Mr. Gabi Ashkenazi, thank you for taking time and talking to us ahead of the ELNET gala. I would like to start by asking you about the recent breakthrough towards Israeli-Arab normalization, the agreements with the UAE, Bahrain, and so on. How do you see the potential impact of this normalization on the region as a whole in terms of stability, the welfare of the region, and a strategic agenda for the region?
Well, I think it's an exciting era. I think it's a game changer, and I'm very happy to be part of it. You know, Mike, if we usually refer to the conflict here by large in two circles, the historic one, Israeli-Arab conflict, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I think no less than we are witnessing I think that the first one, the bigger one, is really fading away, and which I think it's a great news to the region and to us. It's not just the UAE and the Bahrainis. I think it's the other as well. Maybe we'll see other countries joining. But even with the Saudis, for instance, you see a different language. You see a different relationship. Seems to me that we reach a point where the moderate Sunnite countries have realized that they cannot be hostage anymore to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's not that they don't care about it, but they think it's coexist. And I think that's the change here. They don't want to give up the benefit of normalizing the relationship between Israel and their countries while taking care about the other issue, the Palestinian issue. And I think that that's an opportunity for the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It's not on the expense of the Palestinian. The contrary, we leave the door open. And we understand that only by direct negotiation between us and the Palestinian, we will be able to solve the conflict. I belong to those who believe that we have to separate from the Palestinian. When I was in Europe, I said it publicly. We were against annexation. We moved from annexation to normalization. So I think altogether it's an opportunity to strengthen the stability and the security and the peace in the region. I think it's, above all, it's a news to the younger generation. We bring them hope for a better future. I think it's a news for younger generation. We bring them hope. And there is a possibility here for a new architecture in the region. We are on the same page when it's come to Iran, which is a common enemy. Our relationship with some of these countries in the Gulf, and it's not a secret, has been based on this understanding. We are determined to prevent Iran from possess the nuclear weapon as they do. And we are fighting this shoulder to shoulder with the United States, with any administration, as well as other malign activity of the Iranian in the region, which all of us are being affected by.
So, since we talk about the regional architecture and facing Iran, and definitely there is potential, can you say a word about Hezbollah and pushing back against Hezbollah, specifically the designation of all of Hezbollah as a terror organization, not only the military wing? I understand that the ministry is working to that end. Can we join hands with the regional actors to push for that goal?
It's true that one of my first highest priority is to outlaw Hezbollah as a whole, not just as a military wing or terrorist wing. And we have gained some success in Europe with Germany, England, and we right now are in campaigning that others will join. And I think that's we call it the soft power, but it's helped to weakening Hezbollah and actually maybe to free Lebanon, because Lebanon is on a verge of being a failed state. And we Israelis would like to see on the other side of the border an accountable address, a government that control its terrain, sovereignty, people, etc., and which it's not the case right now. So, yes, we think they are on board. If you have met, as I did, my colleague from Bahrain and from the EAU, they are not mistaken by the role of Hezbollah. I remember they have the Houthis almost on their border, and the Houthis is something which is exactly like Hezbollah. And it's not a secret that Hezbollah people train the Houthis and others, so they are fully aware to the dangers that Hezbollah projects to the region and to the stability of the region. So basically, my feeling with my new colleague, I would say, from the Gulf, is that they are, above all, they are against extremism. They are against using the religious for the wrong purposes, be it Hezbollah, be it the Iranian or the Islamic Jihad. They don't care. They don't like, for instance, what the Turks are doing, what Erdogan is doing as well.
So I would like to go back to the issue of the potential impact of Israeli-Arab normalization on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You touched upon it in your earlier answer. Some people say, let's focus on expanding normalization, put the Palestinians aside for now, and later on they may, come around. Others say, no, you have to use it as a bridge to open space for Israeli-Palestinian peacemaking, use the potential that there is in Arab-Israeli normalization for the Israelis and Palestinians. Where are you here? And you express yourself also publicly in favor of opening space for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. How would you do that?
I think it's, as I mentioned before, what we are doing, the normalization, it's not on the expense of the Palestinian. I belong to the generation who fought the Yom Kippur War. We know the consequences of this conflict. If we want to be a Jewish, democratic, secure state, we need to separate from the Palestinian, period. And the only way to do it is by maintaining a dialogue, not on the expense of Israeli security and other issues. So unfortunately, the Palestinians are refusing to negotiate. I think that they are doing a mistake. I cannot understand how their refusal to come to talk serve their interests. I think they are staying behind the latest development. And during my discussion with the Gulf countries, foreign ministers, and with the European one, and actually everyone, I'm urging them to use any leverage that they have in order to convince and persuade the Palestinians to come to the table. Look, they can object, suggest, reject, but to refuse to talk, I don't think that's something, I think it's counterproductive for them. And unless that approach do not change, we cannot force them to come to the table. We are open, I'm open, and we understand that we have to maintain a dialogue. In the meantime, I'm doing the best that I can to at least not deteriorate the situation furthermore when it's come to working permits in Israel, humanitarian aids, economic projects. Recently, we dealt with 10,000 of Palestinian students who has to go back to their universities and colleges all over the world. So unfortunately, they decided to stop the security cooperation. And they are refusing to take the tax money that we collect for them. We discussed it with the European donors, and gladly enough, we are on the same page, and they keep telling to the Palestinians, listen, first take your money before we give you our money. I know that there are different voices within the Palestinian. Hopefully, they will reconsider their approach, but I'm not sure. I think it's more a generational issue than the current leadership.
Since ELNET is devoted to fostering Israeli-European relations, I would like to ask you about Europe and where you see Europe. Some people say that Europe is a little bit behind the curve in the sense that they look at everything through the Israeli-Palestinian prism predominantly. They look at the Israeli-Arab normalization this way, they look at the Israeli-European relations this way. You have been talking a lot to European counterparts, so where do you see Europe? Where would you like to see Europe? What can we do to get them more in line with new realities in the region?
Well, I think Europe is important in the region. Europe is important to Israel. I think after the United States is the most important partner or player for us in the region, and I set a goal to this office and to myself to improve the dialogue that we have with Europe. And yes, you're right. I think they condition too much the dialogue between us to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. That's what I tried to explain during my last visit in the Gimnish. They invited me as a guest speaker. So during 3 hours, I explained my position, my view. I think they start to understand that we have to have a dialogue which not conditioned necessarily just to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because by doing that, they literally give a veto to the Palestinian over our Israeli-Europe relationship. I must tell you that on a bilateral relationship with most of the European countries, we have a very good relationship. I talk with almost all of the ministers, the European ministers. I met 27 of them during the Gimnish. Some of them visit me here in Israel, and I visit them. And I think we are on the right track to improve the dialogue, to use more genuine, transparent, intimate relationship than, a megaphone policy, like where they're stating this and this and this. They even suggested to resume the association dialogue, which I'm happy to join. So I think things are moving. It's not over yet. You still hear the old voices in Europe, and I think that's some of the issues like the Hezbollah outlaw and others, where ELNET and other NGOs can get into the picture. Actually, I know they are doing it, and help us to persuade and convince the European that Israeli-Europe relationship are much broader than just, to look at it through the paradigm of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the responsibility of each player.
ELNET has been campaigning to resume the association agreement and the outlawing of Hezbollah. And we have to know that the German foreign minister invited you and the UAE foreign minister, which I think is also a signal in the right direction.
Yeah, it was very exciting meeting to be in the Holocaust Museum in Berlin for the first time with an Arab minister. I think it was very moving, and I think meaningful. It was his suggestion, by the way. I think we have to give him the credit for that. But more importantly, I think without the German foreign minister, my colleague, actually my friend Heiko Maas, it was not possible. He suggested to host the two of us, and his hospitality and his initiative was behind all of this meeting, which was very important, just to demonstrate to you the relationship. We had a very good meeting. By the way, we had a very good working meeting with His Highness Abdallah Ben Zayed, and you would be amazed to see how we went through sometimes the technicality of each agreement, visas, flights, trade. So you see that unlike other peace agreement, that they really want that the peace will exist between people to people. So our objective is how to materialize and to realize this opportunity and to change this to fruits when people can feel the benefit of it and come to Israel to see the places here or to make business and vice versa. So it's different. And right now, as we speak, a delegation from the foreign minister is down in the Gulf, going to Bahrain, the UAE, and we're expecting them to come on Tuesday to start to sign some of these 20 different agreements between, trade, agriculture, technology, health, visas, embassies, relationship, flight. So it's starting to move, and I'm very happy about it.
I would like to ask a question about the cooperation between the government, in this case the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and non-governmental organizations. ELNET is a non-governmental organization operating in Europe with many offices. How do you see this cooperation and the contribution of organizations such as ELNET to bilateral relations?
Well, I think it's not the first time that we are dealing with NGOs such as ELNET. The most immediate example across my mind is AIPAC in the States. And I think it's definitely important, the Foreign Ministry working with ELNET and others. And, because in many cases, NGOs or ELNET can use their connection in a way that governments cannot. And they are very helpful and very, effective in using this method, which formally, a government or a ministry, be it a foreign ministry or others, cannot use, or it's not accessible to him. So in that sense, they are very efficient, and I think it's a vital player in the case of ELNET, definitely in Europe. It's my policy here in the Foreign Affairs that ELNET is a very important player in European policy and in promoting Israeli interests in the continent.
מילה אחרונה ללארי.
Well, Larry, honestly, Larry is a family. But professionally, you cannot mention the name of Larry without thinking about his commitment, his dedication, for many, many years, by the way. I know Larry's from the 90s. And not just Larry, his entire family started in AIPAC. I think Larry deserves all the credit for being the visionary man when it's come to ELNET. I think it was his idea, and with a small and dedicated group, he pushed it forward. Since I know Larry for many years, I know the beginning. It was not easy, and I think he should be proud, and we should be very appreciative to where ELNET is today. ELNET is like we have AIPAC in the States, we have ELNET in Europe, and I think that's a great help to the State of Israel. With ELNET, we can achieve more, definitely. So thank you very much, Larry, and on behalf of the ministry, myself, and the government, and the people of Israel, thank you very much for your long dedication, for your commitment, and for your support, and promoting Israeli interests in the region. Thank you very much.
Minister Ashkenazi, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.